Without wasting any more time, I would introduce our next speakers. So we have Gary and Amy from Microsoft.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, Amy. Hello, Gary.
Hi, how's things going?
Everything going good? How are you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you. Doing really well.
Yeah, it's good. It's early here in the morning. Me and Gary are both in the UK. So, yeah, really excited to get started. Already had a coffee, ready to go.
Awesome. We all are also excited, like very much pumped for your sessions. So before you, we had two sessions. Like the first one was from Devanshi and Amanda. Then we had Akansha, as you can see, and you are the third speaker for today's conference. So we are really excited, guys. So I would ask you guys to give a quick intro about yourself, like what you guys are doing and what your session is going to be today.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, I'll do a quick intro. My name is Gary Pretty. I'm a senior program manager at Microsoft on the Conversational AI team. And I'm joined by my colleague, Amy Boyd, who's a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. And today we're going to be talking to you about improving customer engagement and productivity with conversational AI. I'm going to start by giving a quick overview into the session, and then Amy's going to take us through some incredible demos showing you how you can get started today. And then I'll finish up by talking about our roadmap moving forward. And hopefully we'll have some time for some Q&A at the end as well. All
Awesome.
sound good, Amy? Ready to go?
Sounds perfect. I just hope the demos hold out.
No pressure.
Awesome. So Gary, I will put your screen on stream.
Okay.
Okay. So here it goes. Hope you guys are able to see it.
Yep. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Okay, so I wanted to really start with an overview of the area, because while some of you, this might be, existing knowledge, certainly for many people, the area of conversational AI more generally is still something that, a lot of people haven't explored. And actually, it's an incredible area that you can get into now. The technology has really been coming on over the last few years, and there's been really no better time to sort of dive in and see what you can produce, hopefully, as you'll see today. And if we think back just a bit of history from the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s, we really went through, three different periods of sort of the decade of the PC, the decade of the internet, the decade of mobile, where these technologies really became woven into everyday life, to the point where we don't even think about them now. It's not even something that I consider that I walk around with my smartphone in my pocket and the incredible power that comes with it. And really, we see the fourth revolution, if you like, being the conversational revolution, and this idea that actually the user interface is changing, so that rather than always having to interact via a particular, touch screen on your mobile or via the traditional keyboard and mouse on your PC, we're really moving into that area that everybody saw, and many people grew up with, like myself, on Star Trek, where we're interacting naturally with, computers. And we see it every day with devices like Alexa, and the ability for us to actually interact with them in a natural way. And really, this is something that we see over the next few years will just become interwoven with our life, just as those previous three technologies did. And so really just to talk about what the definition of conversational AI is, because obviously we've got this whole new user interface, and there are many different definitions, but this is the one I like to use. So conversational AI uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to facilitate more natural communication between humans and computers, commonly through speech and text. A relatively simple description, but one that I hope will provide a level set for today's content. And I always like to call out three key areas that really make up conversational AI. It's not the only things, but these are three key pillars as I see them, and as we see them at Microsoft, that really feed into a good conversational AI solution. They're almost core foundational components that you need. The first one is understanding. We've actually had bots, traditional bots for a while that can go and automate work for us. But actually, the real advance in the last few years has been the ability to understand what a user is saying if they talk naturally. Gone are the days where I need to buy a book, that's this thick to understand how do I interact with my computer via the command line. I don't need to buy an MS-DOS, 5 book where I can actually sort of understand all of the different syntax. Now people are simply expecting to be able to talk to the computer, either via text or speech, in their normal, natural way that they would interact with you or me, and have the computer understand. So that's the first capability that we need. The second one is knowledge and the ability for us to interact and interrogate disparate systems, but intelligently. So if someone asks me a question, I need to be able to not only understand what they're asking me, but also really route that to the correct place to try and extract that information from the correct system. And I might have, integrations to many different systems, maybe an on-premises database, maybe a cloud database, maybe the Microsoft Graph, for example. And we need to understand how can we interrogate that information, and using the natural language input that we've received, how do we then go and get the right answer back for the user? And the third key pillar is conversation. And really, this is the glue that meshes everything together. This is the ability for us to not only design, relatively simple conversations. We've had that capability for some time where you can almost move sequentially through, a form-like scenario. And really, they are still very popular scenarios today. But what we're talking about now is the ability to build sophisticated, natural, and engaging conversations. The ability to handle things like interruptions or maybe context switching for a user. So that, again, these experiences should feel as natural as possible, because if we're going to interact with them every day, we don't want it to feel static and not really dynamic. The more engaging we can build those conversations, the more user engagement we build, the more likely these applications are to weave themselves into our everyday lives. And so the final thing I want to talk about before we hand over to the demos is a couple of slides on the Microsoft Conversational AI platform and how we enable that at Microsoft. And I always find it's actually quite good to show the sort of end-to-end flow. So we start with the user input, as we've said, via text or speech, maybe even an image. We've said text and speech are the most common things, but it could be an image, it could be files. And it's really this sort of multimodal interaction that's being unlocked. And that can happen via many different channels. So the common ones that we see a lot are the web chat channel. So via a website, maybe via a mobile phone, typing on a mobile phone. It could be Microsoft Teams. We've seen a huge explosion in Microsoft Teams with everything that's going on in the world at the moment. It could be WhatsApp, the common messaging channels, and anything right through to the home assistants like Alexa, as I said before. And those channels we support through a couple of different ways. And ultimately, we need to build the application. And for doing that, we've got a few different options. We have Power Virtual Agents, which is part of the Microsoft Power Platform. And that's really your no-code, low-code solution to build out your conversation. And if you've never been in this space before, that's a really good place to start. They have an incredible tool where you can go and actually build something relatively complex using their user interface. If you are more technical and actually you feel ready to maybe dive in and build something a bit more sophisticated, you can use the Bot Framework SDK, which we support in C#, Node, Python, and Java is also in preview. And built on top of that SDK is, as well as Power Virtual Agent, which is built on top, we have something called Bot Framework Composer, which is what we'll be focused on today. Finally, before I jump into a little bit of a description of Bot Framework Composer, we have the cognitive services that you can see on the right-hand side. And these are a suite of web services that Microsoft offer to really democratize AI. So rather than you needing to go and build your own machine learning models for natural language understanding or your own capability for image recognition, Microsoft have taken their years and years of experience and have now exposed those as very, very easy to use web services, some of which you can customize, and you'll see some of that today. So before we hand over to Amy for the demos, I just wanted to talk very briefly about Bot Framework Composer. So Bot Framework Composer is a great place to start. It's an integrated development environment for you to build these conversational applications. It allows us to bring together that understanding, the knowledge, and the conversation pillars all into a single place so that we can actually start to build quite a sophisticated and engaging conversation. It integrates with Power Virtual Agent. So if you do start there, you can then actually use Bot Framework Composer to extend that solution. And I've included a link there just to show you where you can get started. We'll have that link again at the end, along with some other links for you. But with no further ado, I'm now going to hand over to Amy for the start of the show and our demos.
Amazing. Thank you, Gary. Thanks for such a good introduction as well. Yeah, I've kind of recently jumped into this space. I visited it a long time ago, and then I'm all for a low-code tool. If I don't have to code, I'm not precious about it. And so it's been really interesting to kind of get involved. And so in this section, what I wanted to do was talk through a bit of a scenario that you might find with inside your business, so that you can maybe relate it to something that will be relevant to you, and just see how we kind of have built this up over time, and we've made it more and more complex and more engaging and conversational. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Tailwind Traders. So has anyone heard of Tailwind Traders before? Write in the comments if you've heard of Tailwind Traders. If you've heard of Contoso, they're kind of similar. We work with Tailwind Traders quite a lot at Microsoft. They are a fictitious retail company that we often do a lot of demos around. And Tailwind Traders are your DIY, do-it-yourself, gardening tools kind of seller. They're a big global brand. They have shops all over the world. They have an online presence. So they really are a tech-first brand when it comes to retail. But as with any large company, every large company has a lot of employees, and employees are at the center of everything that we do. And so if your employees are really important to you, people might start sending out surveys each year. I'm sure you have them in your business. Gary, we have them at Microsoft, don't we? We do a yearly check-in, and we basically say, how's things going? How are we feeling about the business? How are we feeling about our career, etc.? And it's a really good health point for all of our senior leadership team. So at Tailwind Traders, they're doing the same thing. Now, some great stuff has come back. Apparently at Tailwind Traders, they have really, really great career progression available to them. But some of the things that really came up was actually the processes that are in place are actually not making their jobs simple. They feel like they're making them harder. They're spending more time than they should on these different, very simple processes where, for example, they just want to take vacation, or they want to get access to the great benefits that Tailwind Traders provides them. But unfortunately, it's probably more effort than it's worth. And so that's not good for an employee. An employee's got to be rested, and well-being is essential. And so Tailwind Traders want to go ahead and try and solve this problem. One of the ways that they've thought about solving it is conversational AI. It's often that when we were in person, we would have ad hoc conversations with our manager. We'd be like, yeah, like I think I need to take some time off, getting a little exhausted at the moment. Definitely, thinking about just taking a little bit of time. And so what they're going to do is they're going to try and build that ad hoc conversation, but into a conversational AI experience. So let me show you how they went about doing that. So let's start off first with introducing to the composer, doing some basic bot logic. So like Gary said, we have that sort of initial work through a process and deliver an outcome. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start adding some of those amazing cognitive services that's going to allow us to interact a little easier. So here we are in the Bot Framework Composer. This is the initial sort of homepage interface. This is where you can get started. There's some great demos at the bottom as well that you can click on. You can create a new project, or you can open one that you've already got. So we can see here, I've got one that I've already been using called Tailwind Trader HR Bot Basic. If I open this, this is now the screen where I actually build. We have the structure on the left, And then we have all of our different properties that we can change on the right. And so I want to talk you through the structure a little bit. You have your sort of headline bot at the top, and then underneath you have these icons. These are called triggers. These are the way that we actually trigger the start of a conversation. So for here, when we've got book vacation, I'll actually trigger it using the word book, and then it will go into what we call a dialogue. So this dialogue, you can actually click through. This is super handy. And then we have all of those different dialogues just on the left below. So if I go into book vacation, it will take me to then a process of logic that I have built up for us to actually be able to add different elements to it. So it's really simple to just build it up quickly. If I start my bot, I can actually test what this looks like really quickly in the bot framework emulator. So if I open this emulator screen, and we can see I've got a little welcome message here. So I'm a Tailwind Traders vacation bot, enter book to enter vacation or number of vacation days. So I'm going to type in number of vacation days, and it's going to come back and tell me you've got 8 days. Okay, perfect. So that means I've got enough for holiday. So now I'll click book, and it's kicked off that book vacation dialogue. So I'm going to enter a date here in quite a specific format. We'll come back to that in a minute. And then I'm going to enter a to date. So I'm going to take a good week off. You can see I've got cards in here, so I can make it really easy for people to interact with my bots. I'm going to choose annual paid holiday. And then it says, do you have any comments you wish to leave? So I'm going to put well-deserved break. Fabulous. And then from here, what you can see is I've actually done a summary. So I've taken all the user input, which I've saved in variables, and then I'm able to actually add them to the context. So the bot looks like they're totally understanding what's going on. So if I was happy with this, I can click yes, and it says, no worries, that has been requested. Thank you so much. It's a very polite bot, which is great. A nice little feature that Gary introduced me to very recently and has changed my life is you can actually restart this conversation. It replays it all, and then I can choose a different option. So I can test my bot really thoroughly as the developer. So here I said, no, I'm not happy. I want to change the end date. I'm going to take more time off. I'm going to take an extra 3 days.
Sorry to interrupt you, Amy. Could you please increase the screen size?
So apologies. It is a video
No problem.
so that we can get through so much, but don't worry too much about that. What I'll do is I'll put these videos with you on GitHub so people can go and take a good look. But it's really good feedback, so thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. Yeah, we have like so much to get through. So I've had to do some heavy editing on these videos to fit it all in. But it's really, follow me along with kind of the concepts. And then what I'll do is I'll share it with you all afterwards. But really, really good feedback. Thank you so much. So we completed our request there. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to show you here was that I've got all of these triggers. So we've got this greeting trigger, and when I kicked it off, it actually said you could call help. Now, I didn't use it there because it actually doesn't work right now. So because I don't have a trigger to actually call that help dialogue just there, I need to start adding that in so that it starts triggering this dialogue. So I can add one from the top. There's lots of different things. We'll cover a few of those in a minute, but I'm going to give it a simple regular expression right now. And we're going to call it help. And when I type in help, it will then call into that trigger. So this is in its simplest format. Once that help intent is recognized, I'm going to go and begin that help dialogue. So I'm going to say, whenever you hear this, go to the help dialogue and actually select that one. From here, I then know I can restart the bot. So I've made a couple of changes just there really quickly, and I can immediately test it in the emulator. So I go back to the emulator. I can restart the conversation. And if I type help, what we should see is a very slightly different message. So if they asked help in any other part of the process, it would be like, yeah, no worries. Like you just type book or number of vacation. I want to show you the file structure because this was something that really I thought was really, really good. All of the different files are actually created on your system, the code files for your bot when you're building it in Composer. Now, normally with a no code, low code tool, it sometimes feels like you can't get access to these great code changes. And so I'm going to now commit them. I'm going to put them into source code control. This can be a fully managed development lifecycle. And I can push these to GitHub so that me and Gary can actually work on this together. And then I can see that 20 seconds ago, it was able to actually publish it to GitHub. So what did we do? We built a basic bot with some basic logic. We tested it in the emulator. We then added a new trigger so that I could get access to new intelligence, new processes. And then I'm also able to take all of the great code files that it's making on my local system and do full source code control and push them up to GitHub. So it's good, right? It's a good start, but it's very, let's use the word clunky. That's a bit of a slang word, sorry. But it's very sort of like, I have to type in number of vacation days, or I have to type in book because it's a regular expression, then it will pick it up. We can do so much better than that now. So let me show you how you add language understanding service. So the language understanding service, LUIS, you might have heard of, is actually part of our cognitive services. And it's so deeply ingrained in Composer, it's really nice to add. So what I do, instead of regular expression as the recognizer, I've actually changed it to default recognizer. That will default to LUIS. You can also add your own, which is great if you have a different recognizer. When I now go into a trigger, what you can see is the trigger is much richer. We've got so many different things. I can even add in machine learned variables and also pre-built things like date time. And I'll show you how they interact in a minute. This is quite impressive. So I can say book vacation. I can say book holiday. I can say I want to book vacation. I can be much more flexible. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you in the settings that there is actually a LUIS section. So this is what this whole settings file is going to then ask for a key now that I run this, because it's saying, well, where do I call off to as a cloud service? So I can go to my authoring service in Azure and I can post the key in there. It will now go off. It will go and connect to my LUIS service. It will package all of my files together. And I can now test it using LUIS in the emulator. So watch the difference of the type of conversation that I can have here. So I've got a really basic greeting message, number one. I'm not telling them what they've got to say. I'm telling them what they can do. So in here, I can put, how many vacation days do I have left? And it'll tell me I have 10 days left. So rather than saying number of vacation days, I can ask it in a much more normal way than I would as a human. I can also type in things like, I'm actually from the UK, so I use the word holiday. So instead of saying book vacation, I would actually say, can I book some holiday? Now we're into the same flow, but instead of typing in a really specific date in a format, again, that is a US-based format and I'm from the UK, I can actually just write this Thursday. And it's going to recognize it because of that pre-built in date, time, intent. So I put this Thursday to next Saturday. I've got my nice buttons in there so I can use them. Are there any comments you wish to leave with this vacation? I'm actually just going to type no here. And then we can see I've got all of my information and it's changed those date times. So you can double check that it's completely understood the request. So impressive. Like, I love this. I thought that was so much easier. For comment, I actually wrote no because I misunderstood the question. And I'm like, oh, I actually want to change it. But fun thing, if I write change comment here, it's actually going to trigger me into my edit flow without me clicking the explicit button. Now, that is because what I was able to do is add something called interruptions. So if I go into book vacation and I scroll down to my confirmation part, so where I say, is this okay? And I go to other, there's an option down at the bottom and it's called allow interruptions. If I set that to true, what I can do is then trigger something like this edit comment flow where I can say change the comment, which is what I said, or I could even say change the comment to, explicitly say what I want to send it to, and then it will update it for me. So I'm going to change my comment back to well-deserved break, just so everyone in the organization knows it's well-deserved. And then I'm going to click and I have completed the task. So this was using Lewis, right? What I was able to do was, instead of using the kind of regular expressions that we know of in the past, and if anyone's worked with regular expressions for more than an hour, it's infuriating to try and build them. And so Lewis is a much more flexible, very intelligent way, and actually learns over time as well, right? I haven't even got to the chance of testing this with my alpha beta testers yet. So what I want to show you is, so we added natural language understanding. I can feel like I converse with this bot, but it can only do like 3 things, right? It can book vacation, tell me my number of days, and also get me some help. So it can remind me of what I can do. What I want to add is Tailwind Traders have a frequently asked questions website. And so I'm going to get it to add in all of our frequently asked questions using Q&A Maker. So let's have a look at what that looks like. I'm back in Composer. I have my nice setup here. So we've got some great functionality, but I want to add some more. So this is the Tailwind Traders vacation. It's just, well, it's actually a GitHub web page. So it really can be that simple, but it has these question answer pairs that I want to take and build into my bot. And we can do it so easily now in Composer. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to say, right, I want to add in something called a knowledge base. To do that, one of the nice things is we've got Lewis, but now we're going to add even more. So if I go into add and I go to a new knowledge base, I'm basically going to extract question answer pairs. So that's what Q&A Maker does, but this is all built into the Composer experience. So I take the URL, I post it into here, and I say create a knowledge base. I wait just a minute for it to go through all my question answer pairs, and it brings them back in a really nice, easy to understand format. It's interesting to see, like, you can, it's fascinating when you first do it. So definitely go try this. I can also add alternative phrases. So I can say, well, how do I get to Tailwind Traders? Is something is on the FAQ, but if I ask it, I'm going to say, what is the Tailwind Traders website? Because I'm probably already going to know about it if I'm asking about it. And so I'm going to add in this alternative phrasing, and then it will say, if someone asks this, also give them this answer. So we've got the knowledge base available to us, and it's now added us this Q&A intent recognize trigger. This was automatic. I didn't add this in. And it deals all with the taking of turns of answering questions. So definitely go in there, understand what it's doing, but it's basically just saying, if I ask a question, get that answer from the knowledge base, and then be ready for the next question to come up. So I've got the intents that I actually have built myself. And one thing that I did that was quite important was I added in these conditions. So I've said, if book vacation, if the intent recognized is really confident, it's 0.8, then make sure that this is triggered. If I'm a bit more confused about the intent, then go to Q&A and see whether it triggers anything in my Q&A. Someone's likely to ask something quite specific, whereas with Q&A, they might ask it in many, many different ways, but we've got lots of great questions to answer. So I'm going to start my bot, and I'm going to click Test in Emulator. And from here, I'm going to show you, you can basically just say, ask the same questions, right, of my logic. So how many vacation days do I have left? You can even misspell it, look at that. And so that's still working, right? So it's triggered it because it's confident. But now I can say, what happens when my manager changes? And now it comes back with my Q&A answer, which is super interesting because I love that it's then just able to add immediately, like, so much more functionality. What's the Tailwind Traders web address? And it brings back that URL for me. So that was adding Q&A Maker, and it's a bit of a game changer, to be quite honest with you. It added so much functionality so quickly, and it really made me feel like my bot was easy to work with. Like, you're not just always going to do one process. Someone's going to ask you a different type of question. Finally, and very, very quickly, I'm just going to run you through how can we deploy this, right? I'm happy with this bot, but I need people to start testing it for me. And so I'm back in the Composer, and there is a great piece of documentation on how to publish a bot. There is some great stuff coming as well, so keep in mind that there is improvements all the time, but there is some really great documentation that takes you through step by step. I didn't want to show you me creating Azure resources. I didn't think that was a good use of our time. So what I've showed you is what it brings out is this great JSON structure that basically has all the information that you need to put directly into Composer. So it gives like access tokens, access to Cosmos DB, what's your Lewis keys, all of that great information. So how do I publish in Composer? I go to the publish button, nice and easy. I add this new profile. So a profile is like, where do I want to put it and what are the settings? That's how I see a profile. So I'm going to say, I'm actually going to publish this to Azure Functions. I loved that web app and functions were available. This is going to be an ad hoc usage, right? So I only want it to be triggering and paying for that compute when people are using it. So I thought I'll try out functions here. I'm going to paste in that JSON that came from setting up my resources and click save. And then I'm going to say, right, because you could have many profiles here. And so I'm going to say publish to a selected profile. And if I had more than one, it would give me different options. I'm going to give it a comment. So this one's going to be deploy to Tailwind Traders HR bot to an Azure function, just so I know which one's which. I might try a web app next. And I click OK. And it's going to go ahead and give us a little bit of information about what it's up to, the status. So a few moments later, it came back and said that it's a success. So let's go and see what it looks like. So in Azure, the script that I used created lots of great resources. If I click on the conversational channels, it gives you some great information like what's the messaging endpoint to actually talk with your bot. And then if I test it in the web chat, we can see it basically does the same setup. So I've seen straight away it's working because my greeting message has popped up. So I was like, oh, brilliant. It did deploy. This is great. I can ask it the same questions with the same spelling mistakes as before. And it was still, I can't seem to type when I'm doing demos. And I've got 23 days left. So I definitely need to book some vacation here. And I can basically go through the same thing. Now, given we're short on time, I'm just going to very quickly skip to channels just here. So channels, we have web chat already defaulted in there. So that's how I tested in web chat. But there are so many more channels. Where are your users? Use the channels where your users are. So for an internal organization bot, Microsoft Teams is going to be perfect. Tailwind Traders uses Teams religiously. And so what they want to do is they want to go in there and they want to add it into there so that actually their users can just do that in the environment that they're in. I can add it just by clicking save, and then I can actually click and test what this looks like as well very, very quickly. So it's opened in my Teams instance, so I blurred out all my other conversations. And what you can see is it's done the same thing, but it's a really native experience to Teams. So now it feels like it's all part of this same interface, which is great. So this was basically deploying it to the cloud. So now it's available from a web service and also being able to add it into lots of different channels. So Tailwind Traders had a problem, right? They created conversational AI and now they were able to do another survey with their employees, and their employees are incredibly happy with the ease of use of booking vacation. And so Tailwind Traders will go and extend their HR bot, and hopefully it will be able to do a lot more in the future. So Gary, can I pass you on to the roadmap?
You can, yeah, absolutely. So we have some amazing things that are coming up right now. So, and firstly, thank you very much for the demos. I guess the thing we want to call out is that there are that many key features in this space that we always just try and whet people's appetite in this session. And then it's always really about you going and getting started, because the fact is it's super simple to actually get started. But I think it's really helpful as part of these sessions to really show what you can do really quickly. And as Amy said, she started just a few weeks ago in this space, and you can already see the type of bot that she's able to create, which is incredible. So on the roadmap, we have just released a new version of Composer. There will be another one towards the back end of this year. Power Virtual Agents, as I said, is the no-code solution right now, but there's going to be more integration coming with Composer directly that we've just announced at the Microsoft Ignite conference. So later this year, you'll actually be able to extend your Power Virtual Agents bots using Composer, so that you can actually increase the complexity. We like this idea of no cliffs. You know, we don't want you to hit a wall within our no-code solution in the Power Platform and then have to go and rebuild everything using Composer. So that's super important. We have just GA'd our Alexa service, and we've also made a WhatsApp adapter. And I won't go into what adapters are, but again, you can just check out the links that I'm going to give you in a minute and you'll be able to see. So you can surface your bot in WhatsApp, which is phenomenal. And then later on this year and early into next year, we've got some pretty big improvements to natural language understanding. You've already seen it's pretty powerful using the Lewis service, but we've got another piece of technology called Orchestrator coming, which actually improves natural language understanding, specifically around conversational AI. It's tailored for that purpose. And so really this roadmap, you know, much of it won't make a lot of sense to people who haven't necessarily used this space before, but for any of you who have, hopefully there's some interesting items on it. And if we can just flip back to my screen now, that would be fantastic. So we just wanted to call out a couple of links for you, so you can get started with Composer today at aka.ms/bfcomposer. Encourage you all to go and do that. You can install it. It's an Electron app, so it works on Mac and Linux and Windows. Install it in just a few minutes and get started. We have a ton of samples in the application as well, so you can actually just open a bot and explore, see how it's built. And if you have any problems, please reach out to me or Amy on Twitter. We're always keen to hear from people, help people really get started in the space. And even if you've been working in space for a long time, you hit a problem or you've just got some feedback, we're always looking for that so that we can improve these products. And with that, hopefully we've got a little bit of time for Q&A, but thank you very much.
Oh, we can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Oh,
it had to happen.
Really
it's not a stream without you're on mute, is it?
That was a really nice session, Amy and Gary. Like the demo was really cool, and I see that can be like very evident from the number of questions we are having in the comment box. So I'll just quickly run through the questions and I'll pop them on the screen so that you can answer.
Perfect.